Good morning, everyone. Today I want to take you back to the Gilded Age of America, the late 1800s, when two men waged one of the most bitter and bizarre rivalries in the history of science. They spied on each other, stole from each other, and dynamited fossil sites just to keep the other from getting there first. And yet, out of this toxic feud emerged the foundations of modern paleontology. This is the story of the Bone Wars. Why should we care about a 150-year-old feud between two dead paleontologists? Because without it, our understanding of the prehistoric world would look radically different. The Bone Wars gave us Triceratops, Stegosaurus, Diplodocus, names every schoolchild knows, but they also reveal something deeper about how science actually works. Not always as a noble pursuit of truth, but sometimes as a messy, human, and deeply competitive enterprise. Let me take you inside this extraordinary chapter of scientific history. Let's meet our two protagonists. On one side, Edward Drinker Cope, a Quaker from a wealthy Philadelphia family, a self-taught prodigy who could identify a new species faster than anyone alive. He was brilliant, impulsive, and published at a furious pace, over 1,400 papers in his lifetime. On the other, Othniel Charles Marsh, educated at Yale, backed by the immense fortune of his uncle George Peabody. Where Cope was fast, Marsh was methodical. Where Cope relied on instinct, Marsh relied on institutional power. They began as friends, but that wouldn't last. The year was 1868. Cope, in a gesture of professional courtesy, invited Marsh to visit a fossil-rich quarry in Haddonfield, New Jersey. It seemed innocent enough, two colleagues sharing a site, but Marsh saw an opportunity. Behind Cope's back, he made a secret deal with the quarry owner. All future fossils from that site would go directly to Yale. When Cope discovered what had happened, their friendship shattered. This single act of betrayal lit the fuse that would burn for the next 3 decades. Once the gloves came off, the competition exploded. Both men raced to the American West, Colorado, Wyoming, Nebraska, where vast dinosaur fossil beds were being uncovered. The Morrison Formation alone would yield some of the most iconic dinosaurs ever discovered. They hired teams, ran rival camps, and the pace of discovery was staggering. This wasn't just science, it was the great dinosaur rush, and no fossil bed was safe from their ambition. Now, the methods they used went far beyond healthy competition. Marsh planted spies in Cope's dig camps to report on discoveries. Cope retaliated by publishing attacks questioning Marsh's competence. Both men stole fossils from each other's sites. In some cases, they literally dynamited completed excavations to prevent the other from getting anything useful. They would rush to name species, sometimes the same species multiple times, just to claim priority. The scientific integrity of their work suffered enormously, even as the discoveries piled up. Despite the chaos, the sheer volume of what they uncovered is breathtaking. Marsh gave us Stegosaurus in 1877, the armored dinosaur with the distinctive backplates. Triceratops followed in 1889, the three-horned icon. Diplodocus, the long-necked giant, and Allosaurus, the apex predator of its time. Cope contributed Camarasaurus and Colophysis, among many others. These names resonate through every natural history museum on Earth. The public was captivated, and paleontology entered the popular imagination in a way it never had before. Let that number sink in. Over 140 new dinosaur species, unearthed, assembled, and named in roughly 30 years. Before the Bone Wars, North American paleontology barely existed as a discipline. After it, the United States had become the world center of dinosaur research. This number represents not just quantity, but a permanent transformation of our understanding of prehistoric life. And yet, behind every one of those species was a story of rivalry, sabotage, and obsession. But what did it cost them? By the end, both men were financially and socially ruined. Marsh died in 1899, having mortgaged his home to fund his fossil hunting. Cope died 2 years earlier in 1897, nearly penniless, having sold off much of his collection just to survive. They had destroyed each other's reputations and exhausted their fortunes. The scientific community was left to sort through decades of rushed, duplicate, and sometimes fraudulent publications. And yet, their combined collections, housed at Yale, Philadelphia, and the Smithsonian, became the very foundation of American paleontology. I'll leave you with this thought. The Bone Wars show us that science doesn't always advance through pure, dispassionate inquiry. Sometimes it advances through obsession, rivalry, and even dysfunction. Cope and Marsh nearly destroyed each other, and in the process, they built the foundations of modern American paleontology. Their story asks us a provocative question. Would we have those 140 species without the rivalry that drove them? Perhaps not. And that is the strange, complicated legacy of the Bone Wars.